Yeah, I'm about to okay, so let's start. So the next lecture now is Catbook Workshop 2, Intro to NodeJS. So up until now, you guys have been writing quite a lot of JavaScript, mostly on your browser, and just loading it into your browser and just writing client-side code. So and in this class, we'll be covering how to write a server, and specifically we'll be using learning how to write a server using JavaScript. So, intro to Node.js. Question 1, what is Node.js? So, there's going to be a lot of people who will still be confused even after I tell you guys 5 times over that Node.js is a JavaScript runtime engine. Let me repeat that. It's a runtime engine. What it means is it will run your JavaScript code. That's all it does, Node.js. So the equivalent of what you guys probably know would be probably a Python IDE you have installed on your computer, right? Python IDE is the equivalent of Node. So it just runs your JavaScript code. It is not a framework, most definitely not, and it's not JavaScript itself. So JavaScript is a language, Node.js is how to run it, and it's not a JavaScript package. Okay, so in your terminal, you can run the command NodeJS, and if you're on Windows, apparently you type Node, and you should just get a Node.js shell. So I'll show you that. Let me.
You press Control.
I tried.
Epic Mondays.
Okay. Okay, so we got a Node.js shell, right? So we can type, for example, and it just prints hello world. I have no idea why that just also prints it undefined, but let's just figure it out. I think it's nice.
Yeah, it's not for Mac. Sometimes it's no depending what you install.
Just type both of them.
Try both, whichever one. This is just for demo purposes. We're never actually going to use shell beyond this point, probably. Okay, so yeah, in the shell, you can just type console.log and whatever, all the JavaScript things you have been writing. Most of them will work. Question, will you be able to create DOM elements in Node.js? That's a resounding no, because this is just JavaScript. It doesn't have a browser associated with it, so it doesn't really know what HTML is. At least this Node.js, your runtime engine. What is this?
Oh, no, just say no.
Okay. So, you guys have been using this all over the place up until this point, pop quiz. Where else can you find a JavaScript runtime engine? Chrome. Yay! Remember that. So your console in Chrome, that's essentially the same thing as Node.js. It just has more things in your Chrome, and different things. Some different libraries are loaded in, which are not loaded into Node.js. Okay. So as with all programming languages, like JavaScript, Python, there are language libraries. So for example, Python has NumPy, SciPy, all those things that helps you write code easier. It just gives you a library of cool functions you can use. And in Python, we have pip to install all these modules, right? All these libraries, you just do pip install NumPy, and it installs NumPy on your machine. For JavaScript, we have what is called the Node Package Manager, or NPM for short. We'll be using this extensively in this course. And the difference between NPM and what you think pip is NPM, by default, it will install packages locally on a project-to-project basis. So make a new directory called, I don't know, app. And in it, type npm init. This will initialize a node project for you guys. So what this does is it creates this file called package.json. And for our Catbook app, we ran it, and it'll tell you to like, fill in the name, version, description, blah, 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 blah. And you just put it in, and it creates a package.json file that looks roughly like this. And what this package.json does is it keeps track of all the things and info about your project. Does it depend on any other libraries? What kind of scripts it runs, etc., etc. We'll cover in detail what we put in package.json as we continue on this lecture. Okay, so now let's try to use a Node library to run a web server on our machines. So let's go ahead and create a file .app.js in your newly created project and type in console.log hello world inside this file and save it. And once you saved it, you can run the command NodeJS space app.js and it'll run the program for you. As you can see, this is like very similar to like, both like, for example, Python. Like you just write Python, name a file, .py, and it runs the code for you. So this is basically the same thing.
Again, if you're have Node, it's going to be Node app.js.
Yeah. So I will be like doing these things on a terminal, like on this screen. So if you guys want to keep these slides, check out the slides over there. Okay? Cool. So I just did this. So let's make a directory called app. And we can type npm in it, and package name app, you just, does not matter. Okay, and it makes, as I said, package.json. Inside package.json, it has like slightly different things than whatever, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, and now we want to make a file called app.js. And in app.js, we just write console.log. Yeah. Okay.
And don't clear your terminal.
Okay, sorry. This is just I will not clear my terminal. Okay. We good. Sorry.
Restart.
Restart.
Get reset.
I mean, I'm just okay. Let's just do this. Sorry. Okay, we're ready. So, let's try that again. We make a directory called app, and let's go into the directory and type npm in it. This should create kind of like an interactive thing where you just press enter. Like, you can fill it in later. Like, it really doesn't matter. And, okay. So when we finish this, this will have created a file called package.json. And the contents of package.json, you can see in the terminal right there. Does anyone have any trouble getting up to this point? Yes. In Windows, are you using a command line or are you using the git bash thing?
If you get bash, will be the same command.
Yes. Cat prints out the contents of a file.
Whenever you get an error anywhere, it says permission denied.
Okay. I'm gonna do this.
And it's going to make you give your
I'll keep them.
sudo, and then you need to
Is this a bit too large? Is it okay if I like make it slightly smaller?
whatever. You have to repeat.
Like, is this okay?
You just put sudo.
Okay. I'm gonna keep this like this.
So like, you have to enter your Yep.
Yes.
Okay, and here I've opened tax.json. As you can see, this file and this, yeah, we have the content score.
Anyone else needs help? Just like raise your hand. Go and wait.
There's one over there. Robert, can you make sure if there are any questions here you can answer them?
I don't know.
And like you'll go do it in Node shell. With Node shell, when you're using that. With that. Yes, over. Make a folder.
Cat is a command that like will copy whatever's like in a file. So like if you make a file that's like called app.js and you put like the word hello in it and then you do cat.js, it'll like do that. And that's like if you want to do more research, like you can look up something called like piping and stuff like that, and it just like lets you like put the output of whatever's in the command line into another command. So like say you want to search for a file, you can do like cat the app, so like cat and then what the file name is, and you can like type that and then it'll like search for it. So it's like used for like changing things.
Okay, let's see. Okay, if you want to look at what commands I ran in the terminal, then it's up there. Okay. Okay, let's move on. So now we've set up our project. If you still need to like look at instructions, all these instructions should be fairly explicit in the slide so you can follow along. Okay, now let's make a file called app.js. And in app.js, type console.log hello world. Yeah. I mean, okay, open this in your Sublime. I don't, wait, do I have Sublime? I did.
You can make the file in app.js. He's just a hacker, man. So he uses like Vibe. Yeah, it's all good.
Okay. Let me do this. Okay, so in Sublime we have our app.js. And in app.js we just typed console.log. Okay. And I'll do this.
Every folder you create.
You can, if you guys are not comfortable with like terminal, just make a folder, app, and go in the folder and make a file.
Like you were supposed to create a folder.
Anyone confused?
Oh, once you open your folder in Sublime, you can add a new file like this. Control S, and then you can whatever, and you can save.
This get edited. Wait.
Okay, let's move on. So now that we have created this file app.js and type console.log, we can type NodeJS app.js. So we're just running our newly typed program. It just runs and prints hello world. And that's it. Okay, everybody's caught up to this point, right? Okay, let's go back to the slides. Okay, so now that we have a very rudimentary program running in Node.js, we have our project set up, we can now import a library and use the library to run a web server on our computers, basically. So in your terminal, write npm install http -- save. So what this command does is when you run it, it does two things. First, it adds the HTTP package dependency to your package.json. It's telling that, okay, this npm project, the node project, will depend on the HTTP package. So if anyone's using this project and trying to run it, they will know, oh, okay, I need to install the HTTP library for this project for it to run properly. And two, it installs the HTTP library code under the directory node modules. Okay. So if we do look at what files we have in our app, now we have this new folder called node modules. And in node module, we have another folder called HTTP, and HTTP has the code for running the library files for the HTTP package. Okay, please be warned that when you install it like this by typing npm install HTTP, it actually saves the files for HTTP in the current project. This is different from Python, where when you write pip install numpy, it installs it on your machine. So regardless of which project you are, you should be able to import numpy without problems. But in this situation, you actually have to install HTTP for every single project, respectively. That is why the node modules folder is created within your project. Okay, so oops.
Question.
Yes.
So where are all those files? If I go into the HTTP folder, I just have a package.json that has some JSON description, but it doesn't have any. If I install NumPy.
So, in this example, HTTP is actually a built-in library that ships with Node, so it's not going to actually pull anything in. And we're using it just as an example, but usually it's actually downloaded in the folder called Node modules, and you can usually find it.
Yeah. We'll be using another package in a moment, and once we install that one, you should be able to find the source code files there. Okay. Next. So, we're going to go on a slight, very important, but tangent off what we're doing. And right now, in your applications that you just created, make a .gitignore file in the project directory and write inside it node modules. The reason we're doing this is, as we just said, Node Modules has the source code for a lot of packages, right? Some of these packages are huge, and these packages are already online. You don't need to put them in your project repositories. So if you put them in, like your project repositories are going to be huge with a lot of code that's not actually part of your project. So this is just kind of something you should do. So let's go ahead and do that. So in here, let's make a new folder, new file called .gitignore. And in this gitignore, type node modules /. So what this is basically telling is, once you make this app into a Git repository, it will just ignore the folder node modules and it will never add it to your project. It will just think it's invisible and call it a day. Okay, we don't really need to think too hard about this. So one thing to keep in mind is, let's say you are, from now on, let's say you're downloading a Git repository and you get the source code. So in the source code you'll have the package.json and whatever other JavaScript files you made, such as app.js. And you'll notice that node modules will not be in this repository. What you have to do then is type npm install so that it installs node modules on your machine. Okay, just to demonstrate this, I will go ahead and okay. I'll just make a new terminal. Okay, and let's say I want to clone what was yours again? Workshop 1, right? Okay, let's say I want to, this won't work. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead, just for the sake of demonstration, download the final product of Catbook that you guys are making. And let's say I clone it in. So I just created the folder Catbook. And if we go into Catbook and look what's inside, as I said, it has package.json and some other files, right? Now, if you want to be able to run this project, you want to type npm install, and what this will do is it'll look inside package.json, look at what libraries this project will need to have installed, and it will install everything accordingly.
It's still being, it's compiling.
Okay. Okay, this will take some time, and okay, we're done. So, voila. This is how you import new source code, like new node projects into your machines and be able to run them. Okay, that was the tangent. Now let's go back. Let's move on, and we've just imported the code for HTTP, right? So now what we want to do is actually in our app.js be like, okay, I'm using HTTP package, and I'll use this HTTP package to set up a server. Okay, so in our app.js, we now want to, let's just delete this. Const HTTP equals require HTTP. Okay, what this is doing is, this is basically the equivalent of import numpy in Python. So what you're basically doing is, okay, I want to import the package HTTP, and when I want to use it, I basically type HTTP dot and whatever methods this package supplies. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the code that's on the right. This is like the syntax of how you set up a server using the HTTP package. So you type const server equals HTTP. Oh, dear. Sorry. Oops. It's rest.end. Okay. Okay, let's talk briefly as to what this code is doing, right? So first, we're making a server object which uses the HTTP package to create a server object. And the syntax here, like being like the fact that you need to type .create server and the fact that you need to pass in a function is all in the HTTP package documentation. You can look it up online. And it sets up the server here, and then it tells the server to listen on port 3000. So this is just like some setting up, like opening up HTTP requests, like accepting HTTP requests to your machine. This is just like some just something you need to do. Yeah.
That's how servers work.
Yeah, you need to open up a port so that you can receive requests. This is basically what this is doing. Okay. I'm gonna put this to the side now and go back here. Okay, so if you're this one. Okay, if you got lost in the middle of this, and you can hop in right at the end of this over here. So if you got lost in the middle, go to this is on the slides. You guys can download it and check out the link. And okay, so let's talk about this function recres. So this function recres, this structure will come up a lot in any time you're making a server. So one, rec stands for request, and res stands for response. So what we're doing here is we're passing in a function to this method create server so that whenever a request is received at our server, it will run this function. And in this function, we just set that this response should send the text hello world. This is just syntax. You can just look it up on documentation on why this is .end. This is just how it is. And this type of function recres, will pop up a lot in this workshop and going forward. So just internalize what this really means. And it should be fine. Okay. Now let's test out our web server. So we just wrote this in app.js. So we can type NodeJS app.js in our terminal. And it says server running on port 3000. This is printing out this console log. Okay, now to test whether our web server is working, we just open our browser, type in localhost 3000. And there we go. We have hello world printed on our web browser. So what this means is you guys are all on your machines, respectively, running a small web server, and you are making a request to it from your browser. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, I'm just gonna move forward. Okay, so we're done. We made it a web server. Thank you for coming. But when you actually think about it, this is like a very, very, very simplistic application. It just sends you hi. So real applications, the ones you guys are probably going to be working on, are like many orders of magnitude more complicated in structure. So you need to have like a better way of organizing your server code. So one very popular framework, a JavaScript framework that allows us to do this, is called Express. So Express is a JavaScript library that provides like a web server architecture. What I mean by that is, by Rupine's take, things we were doing, it's organize my web server. Make it good and modular. You can like compartmentalize different parts of the web server's logic. So you can be like, okay, this part does this. This other part takes care of users. This other part takes care of stories and comments, etc., etc., etc. And going forward from this workshop into the next two, we will be learning how to use Express to make a lot of functionality of the Catbook workshop app we've been working on, so that by the end, everything works fine. Okay, so now, before we go ahead and install Express, we need some housekeeping. So, this workshop, unfortunately, is one of the very boring ones where you kind of do a lot of configurations and just things you just have to do. It's kind of like setting up your project. So let's go ahead and do it. So in your app folder, here, create two folders. One called SRC. SRC will, from now on, hold all the files of our server JavaScript files. So for example, app.js is running our server, right? So that means that we need to move app.js into server. How do I move things? Okay. And then we need to make another folder called public. We'll get back to what public does in a little bit. You guys can move a file from here to SRC, right? I'm just gonna do it here. I couldn't figure out for the life of me. Just move it in here. So now app.js is in SRC. Okay, and then step 2, we need to install this other package called NodeMon. And please